Hi guys, it's Michelle with Deception Bytes, and I'm back again. I don't know if that's an announcement or if that's a warning. I'm not sure, but I'm back again to continue on with the Q-Anon post. This seems to have been a very busy news day. Maybe it's just me, but it just seems there's a lot going on today in the news. So, just everything. The fires in California, they had a small earthquake in San Diego, hoping that's not a foreshock. There's the car or the vehicle that plowed into the pedestrians and bikers in Manhattan. There's the shooting in New Mexico school. There's just a lot, and plus everything that's going on in Jerusalem. So let's continue on with the Q posts. I think that we're going to probably get used to having busy news days from now on. Just seems like everything is shaking loose. So let's pick it up where I left off last time, and we're at November 6, 2017, 4:52 p.m. And Q asks, why were the acts that recently occurred in Saudi Arabia so critically important? And if you could see me, I'm rolling my eyes, because the thing with Q is he or she asks the same questions over and over and over again just to emphasize their importance. And we know that what occurred in Saudi Arabia was critically important, and we know why. So for me to get into this again is just repeating everything that I've repeated in previous videos. So what U.S. assets are in place in or near Saudi Arabia? Well, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure. I know that there are American military personnel there. I believe that there are probably CIA there. But who is there and what they are doing, I don't know. And if any of you know, please make some comments down below, and I'm sure that we'll all read those. What assurances were made to protect the kingdom? Now, again, I don't know how we would know that. I don't think that we're privy to that kind of information. Obviously, Q is saying that assurances were made to protect the kingdom, and he's talking about Saudi Arabia here. So what assurances were made exactly, I don't know if any of us know. Who shot down the missile from Yemen? Well, I've heard two different things. I've heard that it was the Saudis, and I've heard it was the U.S. So one or the other shot down the missile. It did come from Yemen, from everything that I've heard. So I'm not sure. If anybody has any more information on that, please leave a comment below. The problem at this point is that there's so much disinformation out there that it's very, very hard to get the true story anywhere. And I think it's helped enormously that Q has led us by making us ask the right questions. He's asked the questions, but in reality, he's telling us. And I think that has helped to get the answers, but it's still difficult because there is just so much disinformation. And my gosh, these people, as their power wanes, their efforts increase at disinformation. So I'm not sure that I've got the right story there. I've heard that the missile came from Yemen and that the Saudis/US shot it down. I also heard at one point that the technology for the missile was American, and yet I heard that ultimately it came from Iran. The weapon came from Iran. So I don't know exactly what went on there. And the next thing he says is, President of the United States declassifies speech, Japan, 11/5, November 5th. Well, I did go to that speech online and I listened to it. I didn't find anything that really stuck out to me. It was very nice. It was very complimentary to our servicemen and servicewomen. But in what he is actually referring to here, I'm not sure. So maybe you have a better idea than I do. I did listen to the entire thing, but I'm just not sure what he's getting at there. So, was it really from Yemen? Well, As far as I know, yes, but from what I can tell, it was supplied by Iran. But again, like I said, there is so much disinformation happening right now that it is increasingly difficult to get the right story. So it's interesting, when somebody in the know actually fills us in on something, because I'm sure that there are servicemen and servicewomen that know. I'm sure there's all sorts of people that know, but it's hard right now in this country to get a straight answer. Now, was it really from Yemen? Yes, I said, but supplied by Iran. And again, I could be wrong, but that is what I think at the time being. How do we know? Well, I'm not exactly sure how we know. I'm not exactly sure how they determined that. I guess they can tell from where a missile has come from, and they most certainly can tell, once they have the missile, they can backward engineer it and find out where it came from. Why is this relevant? Well, I guess it's very relevant to know where it came from. Who are the puppets? Well, I would say that the puppets are the people that are doing the will of the overlords, who are their puppet masters. And of course, we do know who the puppet masters are. It's the House of Saud, or it was the House of Saud, the Rothschilds, George Soros, and there's others. But these are the globalists. And who pulls the strings? Well, they do, or they did. Now, how far this war against the globalists has gone, I'm not really sure. I think that things are definitely progressing in that direction, but how far along, I don't know. It appears like there's been a lot of strides made very, very quickly. What provides power? Well, I would say money. Oil provides money. Money provides power. I can't really think of anything else. Everything translates into money, which translates into power. And like I said in the last video, people always say, oh, it's money is the root of all evil. And it's not. That's not what the Bible says. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. So it's not actually money. Money is just a tool. And that's not what is evil. What is evil is the love of money, because it's for the love of money that people will do just about anything to get it. And these are the types of people that we're dealing with here. What if U.S. elections can be rigged? Well, they can be rigged, and we know that. We know that they can be rigged. They can be rigged, and they have been rigged. How are JFK, Reagan, and Trump different from the rest? I did spend a great deal of time looking into that because it's an interesting question. But it seems the thing that they all have in common are that they all proved that tax cuts worked, or tax cuts work. They all believed that the key to growth, economic growth, was in cutting taxes. So whether that is what Q is looking for here, I think it is, personally, because it is something that they all three have in common. I would have said, oh, they all wanted to do away with the Fed, but I don't think that Reagan wanted to do away with the Fed, and I don't think that Trump wants to do away with the Fed. I could be completely wrong. I've been wrong before, and gosh darn it, I'm going to be wrong again, and that's my prerogative. But I don't like, I don't like staying wrong. It's okay to be wrong, but I don't want to stay wrong. So if someone else has a better answer to that, then please let me know. Why did JFK surround himself with family, much like the President of the United States? And that's true. He did surround himself with family. And I would say that it's for much the same reason that Donald Trump surrounds himself with family. He can trust family. He doesn't know who to trust. He doesn't know who his enemies are, although I think he has a pretty good idea. And I think it's a trust situation. And JFK was not trusting either of those people around him. It's pretty obvious, and for good reason, obviously. what if it was bought and paid for? And of course, right here, he's talking about the presidency. What if the presidency was bought and paid for? And I think it was. I think that the presidency was bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton. But unfortunately, something went wrong there, and she didn't get in. How would this be possible? Well, it's very possible. It's possible in a lot of ways. It's possible either by hacking the machines. It's possible by, registering dead people to vote, having illegal aliens vote, any number of ways it can be done. And these are all things that have happened. It annoys me because I am a legal resident of the United States. I have a green card. I've lived there many, many years. But I'm not able to vote even though I'm legally there, I've done everything legally, I'm not able to vote because I'm not a full-fledged citizen. So, but I'll tell you one thing, I could go into any, voter booth in the U.S. and be able to vote, easy. So, yeah. Anyway, I won't get off on that again because that can get me pretty worked up. I'm very much against that. Illegals voting. Okay. Why did he surround himself with family? What if it was bought and paid for? How could this be possible? Well, we know that it's possible. Why are there no voting ID laws in place? Well, that's a darn good question. And, traditionally the narrative has been that it's racist to require ID. Right. You need ID to drink. Is that racist? Is it racist to require an ID to drink? You need an ID to drive a car. Is that racist? What else do you need an ID for? Just about everything. You need ID to get an apartment, to open a bank account. I mean, everything. So to get a loan. But that's not racist. But if you ask for an ID, to vote, then that's horribly racist. Horribly racist. So I don't know. I don't know who comes up with this stuff, but I think that they've been smoking too much crack. Anyway, what is the argument for not allowing voter ID laws to be enacted? And that's what I just said. It's, they say it's racist, and the other thing was, oh gosh, I was just reading this recently where Obama had used this example of a woman, this African-American woman not being able to vote because she couldn't afford the $25 that it took to get a copy of her birth certificate. And so this was proof, of course, that voter ID laws requiring voter ID was racist. Okay, because obviously white people never have to pay money to get their social or their birth certificates. That never happens, does it? Apparently not. So, what do you need an ID for? And we went through that. Why are immigrants important? And he has in parentheses here, the Muslim Brotherhood votes attacks. So he's answering the question himself. He's saying the Muslim Brotherhood, they can come and go. Votes, it gives the Democrats votes, and attacks. I mean, obviously, MS-13 is getting over the border with no difficulties. Why are illegals important? MS-13 votes 187. I don't know what 187 means. If anybody can fill me in on that, let me know. It's not ringing any bells as far as I'm concerned, but I'm sure it means something. Why is open border important? Well, it's important so that people can get in and out easily. The ne'er-do-wells, I like to call them, because let me tell you, the border sure isn't open between Canada and the U.S. On the north, it's not open. Trust me. It is very, very, very difficult. And yet, I've seen videos, actually, of truck drivers going through at the Mexican border and them just waving them on. Just waving them on. They don't care. They don't care if they're American or Mexican or who they are. Doesn't matter. I don't know if it's still that way now that Trump is in power, but it sure was. It sure was. And yet they clamped down very, very hard on Canadians trying to get into the U.S. It was very difficult for me to immigrate to the U.S. Not easy at all. Okay. So, what did Barack Obama say on the campaign trail last year to illegals within the U.S.? I'm not exactly sure. I don't know. I don't recall. But I believe, if I am not mistaken, that he encouraged them to vote. Now, if that's wrong and I'm saying something in error, then please correct me down below. But I am almost 100% certain that he was encouraging them to vote. Was this legal? Heck no. Of course it wasn't illegal. Who owns sizable stakes in voter machine companies? Well, I've heard that it's George Soros, and I've had other people remark in the comments that it's George Soros. I can't find direct correlation there, but so many people have said it that I think that it's probably true, and Q, of course, is saying it, that it's true. So I tend to believe that, but in terms of hard concrete evidence, I haven't seen it yet. If anybody has that hard concrete evidence, then please provide links below. Who decides what voter machines are used in elections? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure who that's up to. I'm sure that there may be somebody listening that's either worked in elections or knows the answer to this, but I'm not aware of who that might be. Why are some, quote, important counties still manually hand counted? Well, I think that that's obvious. They still do. They do that because these counties are very, very important when it comes down to, one or two votes can really matter. So they manually and they hand count them just to ensure accuracy. So, and then he says, Q says, I say he. It could be a she. I think it's a he, but hey. God save us, Q. Now, let's go on to the next one. Okay, November 6, 2017, 4:52 p.m. What does money buy? Well, money buys just about anything you want. And unfortunately, it can buy a lot of it can buy influence, it can buy power, it can buy just about whatever you want. How do you prevent tampering? Well, that's a good question. I don't know. Obviously, if there was a way to prevent tampering, I don't know. I really don't know. I was going to say that if there was a way to prevent it, then they would try to prevent it, but I'm not so sure that that's true either. So, why are... Oh, excuse me. For some reason, a yawn just came up and attacked my face. Why are most forms of media left-wing? Because the organizations are top-heavy with Democrats. As of 2013, only 7% of journalists identified as Republicans. So that explains a lot. 7% of journalists identify as Republican. Why is Hollywood left-wing? Same reason. And not only that, but I think that money, obviously Q is painting a picture here for us. He's saying, what does money buy? How do you prevent tampering? Why are most forms of media left-wing? Well, it's because they're top-heavy with Democrats. And he's saying, well, why is Hollywood left-wing? Well, it's the same reason. And I think what he's getting at, because this is what he has said in different posts, that, these people are placed there for a reason, to affect the narrative. They're placed there. So I think that's why he's saying, what does money buy? Influence, obviously. Why is the narrative so important? Well, people believe what they hear. People are going to believe what they hear, especially when it's somebody all dressed up on the evening news and they're professional looking, they're attractive, and they just present that news with a straight face, and people believe it. They're going to believe it because they're going to say, well, why would the news lie? Why would our government lie to us? Why indeed? So why is the narrative so important? People believe what they hear. So controlling the narrative brings power. Why do liberals defer to racism without proof? Because it gets their support base riled up. You know that the black population votes Democrat. I mean, they traditionally always have. So what better way to get them riled up than accusing the Republicans of being racist? Yet, and then of course Q says no proof. Of course there's no proof. There's no proof. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to the Democrats. They're gonna just say everything's racist. Who is Hillary Rodham Clinton's mentor? Well, that would be, I said Saul Alinsky because I did read that she was a fan of Saul Alinsky, but I think the answer that Q is looking for here is Robert Byrd, and he is a former KKK leader. So he and Hillary, I'm sure, get along really, really well. Robert C. Byrd was a recruiter for the Klan while in his 20s and 30s, rising to the title of Kleagle, an exalted cyclops of his local chapter. After leaving the group, Byrd spoke in favor of the Klan during his early political career. Though he claimed to have left the organization in 1943, Byrd wrote a letter in 1946 to the group's imperial wizard stating, "The Klan is needed today as never before, and I am anxious to see its rebirth here in West Virginia." Byrd attempted to explain or defend his former membership in the Klan in his 1958 U.S. Senate campaign when he was 41 years old. Byrd, a Democrat, eventually became his party leader in the Senate. Byrd later said joining the Klan was his quote, greatest mistake. The NAACP gave him a 100% rating on their issues during the 108th Congress. However, in a 2001 incident, Byrd repeatedly used the phrase white niggers on a national television broadcast. So that's Hillary's mentor. What party was he affiliated with? He was a Democrat. And then Q says proof. And I think that he's saying, he's wanting to prove that it's actually the Democrats that are the racist. And so he's saying proof. What party formed the KKK? Well, that would be the Democratic Party. What party formed the Confederacy? Well, that would be the Democratic Party again. What party abolished slavery? Well, that would be the Republican Party. So why are the Democrats attempting to erase history? Well, that's a good question, isn't it? It's a very good question. They're always accusing the Republicans of being racist, and yet it was the Republican Party that abolished slavery, and the Democratic Party that formed the KKK and the Confederacy. So what do you think of that? Pretty interesting. Is the black population truly free today, or enslaved by the Democratic Party? Well, I believe that they're enslaved because of all the free handouts and so forth. It's keeping them down. That's what I believe. Now, we have visited this before in another post of Q's where he talked about this very same thing. That's why he's saying refer back to the black population crumbs. I'm not going to do that because we covered it in depth the first time. So why is this relevant? Well, I think it's obviously very relevant. Why is there an attack the day after bad news is published with the Democrats? And that's true. I've noticed that as well. I'm sure you have as well, that if there's bad news to be had, all of a sudden there's some sort of an attack. And it misdirects attention away from the bad news and onto the tragedy. Because, you know, if Hillary's in the news and they don't want her to be in the news, well then, a school shooting or something, well, that's going to be just the ticket because everybody's going to want to know about that. So that's what I believe. Do you believe in coincidences? Nope, I don't. Not saying that they don't exist, but Q has repeatedly told us that in this matter, there are no coincidences. So I'm going to say no. And then he says, paint the picture. Crumbs will make bread. Operations underway. Operators active. Pray. Snow White, Godfather 3, Q. Now, this just reminded me when I read Snow White there. That is supposedly Snowden, and I believe that to be true. I know that some other people have had some other ideas. I still believe it's Snowden until I see really good proof that it's not. But I did go out to Netflix. I'm really not a television watcher or a movie watcher, but I did go out to Netflix and see the movie Snowden. Very good. It was very, very good, and I'm really glad I watched it because it filled in a lot of stuff for me. So if you haven't seen it, I would recommend it. You should be able to, if you have Netflix, you can watch it for free. There's actually, I think, 3 movies on there about Snowden, but it was good. So let's see. Now, the next one, November 6, 2017, 5:07 p.m. Q says, nothing is random. Everything has meaning. Plus, plus, plus. Q. Now, this, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time that this plus, plus, plus comes up. And it's interesting that in a tweet by Donald Trump, he also used plus, 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 which, of course, lent credence to the fact that many people think that Trump is Q. What that means, I don't know. I don't know. There may be some crumbs up further that let us in on that, but at this point, I don't know. And if anybody else does, please feel free to leave comments. November 7th, 2017, 6:34 p.m. Plus, 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 plus. Q. Again, I don't know what that means. I don't know what he's referring to. But again, here he says here, November 7th, 2017, 6:56 p.m., and that's not long after the last one that he quoted. He repeats the same thing, and he says, previous was deleted. Curious. Plus, 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 Q. So he must have thought that this was deleted, which it does not appear it was. But again, 4chan is notoriously hard to navigate, and you can ask just about anyone that. They'll tell you the same thing. Now, November 7th, 2017 at 7:05 p.m. Q says, the graphic is your key. Now, of course, he's referring to the graphic. Like I said, 4chan is like spaghetti. It's very hard to navigate the strings. And he had encouraged someone on there to put a graphic out that lists all of the crumbs on it, all of his posts, which this person did that. And then every so often he says, yes, that's correct. Those are all my posts. Or he says, whatever. So he's saying the graphic is your key. And then, I love this. Let's pause and say hello to the rogue intelligence agencies currently monitoring these threads. Was the money worth it? Titanic. And of course, we all know that they said the Titanic was unsinkable. In fact, they said God himself couldn't sink that ship. Well, God himself showed that he could. So anyway, was the money worth it? Titanic. Q. This is so odd. This is off the subject, and it is kind of a rabbit trail, but I just thought of this when he said, say hello to the rogue intelligence agencies currently monitoring these threads. I had the strangest thing happen to me today, and it's been happening recently. All my calls on my cell phone get cut off, especially when I'm talking to people in the U.S. And I called my parents, my mother and my stepfather, and all of a sudden, now my stepfather is quite the joker, so he often, plays weird sounds in the phone and does things. He's just got a very playful, very childlike personality. Not childish, childlike. He's just a lot of fun. So I heard this music in the phone really loud. It was kind of like that kind of electronic, when you get a Christmas card or something and you open it and it starts, that sound that all of those little noisemakers have. That's what it sounded like, except it was Christmas music, and it was really loud in the phone. And I said, okay, it's not funny. And, and I'm getting tired at this point because I've been listening to it for several minutes, and I'm like, okay, it's funny. Now let me talk to you. But it just kept getting louder and louder. And so I hung up, and I tried to call back, and the number was busy. And then my mother called me back, and she said, "What on earth was that?" And I said, "What do you mean? I thought, he was playing some sort of, I won't say his name, but I thought he was playing some Christmas music." And she says, "Well, we thought you were playing it." And we kept thinking, all right, would she shut that off now? Like, okay. And I said, no, it wasn't me. And they said, no, it wasn't them. So it was just extremely bizarre because this was so loud in the phone. It's unbelievably loud. So I don't know what all that's about, but you never know who's listening, I guess. Anything is possible. I sound a little paranoid, don't I? Yes, I do. Okay, here is November 9th, 2017, 11:07. And Q says, trip added, period. So he's telling us that a trip has been added. And at this point, he is overseas in Asia. And pay attention to these little things because there's usually a message in them. And this says CA. If you look at the ones with the square parentheses, it says CA is here. I don't know. CA, I would think that would be CIA, but I don't know. Anyway, let's go on with what it's saying. So Q is saying there's a coordinated effort to misdirect. Guide to reading the crumbs necessary to continue. Attached graphic is correct. Linked graphics are incorrect and false. Now the graphic, that's where I got these from the graphic, so I know that these are correct. Graphic is necessary and vital. Timestamps and order is critical. Review graphic in full each day post news release. Learn to distinguish between relevant and non-relevant news. Disinformation is real. Disinformation is necessary. Now, I think he is saying example, and then he's using US ML NG 1 false. Saudi Arabia true. So I'm not exactly sure what this is standing for. He's saying example, US ML NG 1 false. Saudi Arabia true. Maybe I'm not reading this correctly. I don't know. But, thousands of heads are better than one. So I know that you guys are all interested in this. If you're listening to this, so you're trying to figure this out just like I am, and you may have a much better answer, and you may know for a fact what the answer is. So let us know, because we all need each other. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm actually getting a lot of my answers from you guys. Why was this necessary? And I'm not sure what he's referring to. Maybe he's referring to disinformation. Why is it necessary? Well, we all know why disinformation is necessary, especially in a situation of war or combat or whatever. So anyway, what questions were asked regarding Saudi Arabia prior to Saudi Arabia events? Now, I'm thinking that he is talking like just prior to the Saudi Arabia events. He tweeted about the initial public offering for Aramco. So, and that, of course, is the oil company in Saudi Arabia. So whether that's what he's referring to, I think it is, but not sure. Why is this relevant? Well, I'm not sure why it's relevant, but obviously it's relevant because Q is telling us it is. Think mirror, look there, or here, or there. Truth is behind you. What is a map? So he's saying, this was, to me, he's saying that this tweet that he put out was necessary for disinformation. I'm not sure. Or necessary to foil, kind of like look here or there or here. Truth is behind you. What is a map? Well, we all know what a map is. Why is a map useful? Because it gives directions. What is a legend? A legend tells us how to interpret the map. Why is a legend useful? It gives the interpretation for the map. Can't read the map without a legend. What is a sequence? Well, a sequence is a particular order in which related events, movements, or things follow each other. Why is that? Why is this relevant? Well, I don't know. But I'm pretty certain he's going to tell us at some point. When does a map become a guide? This is an odd question to me because a map is a guide. What else is a map if not a guide? And then he says, what is a keystone? Well, a keystone is a stone that holds everything else in place. It's a central stone or other piece at the apex of an arch or vault. So, if you've got like a rounded, bricks, like you've got a rounded arch there, the stone that's in the middle is the apex or the keystone because it holds everything else in place. Without that, it comes down. And then he says, everything stated is relevant. Everything. Future provides past. Map provides picture. Picture provides 40,000 feet. V, 40,000 feet. V is classified. Now, when he said that, it kind of tripped me off to the picture that he posted, and Q posted this picture, and I guess somebody at some point or some way was able to find the coordinates of that picture or whatever, and it was indeed taken where the Air Force One would have been flying at that time. So I can't remember all the particulars of that, but I remember looking into that and thinking, well, isn't that interesting that, Trump or Q posted that picture, but then so did Trump, I believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong about that. Then he says, why is a map useful? And this was taken in the air at 40,000 feet, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So that's why I'm thinking that it might be that he's referring to. Why is a map useful? Well, we all know why a map is useful. If you're lost, it can, show you the way that you need to go. Think direction, gives us directions. Think full picture. Who controls the narrative? Well, up until recently, the left. Why is this relevant? Well, bias. They've got a very pure, very obvious bias. What is a spell? A spell or charm is a set of words, spoken or unspoken, which are considered by its user to invoke some magical effect. Who is asleep? Most of the world. I think we all know that to be a fact. And I'll say as well, those of us who think they're awake, I mean, I would consider myself awake, but that doesn't mean that I'm not asleep to some things. and awake to others. And I think that's the same with all of us. And that's why it takes all of us, because you might be awake to something that I am not. And you might have information that can help me. It might be the same with me. I may have information that can wake you up in areas where you're still sleeping, and it may be able to help you in the future. So I think we're all important, and we're all at different stages, and we're all at different, levels of awakeness. So that's why I hate it when people start calling people names and things in the comments, because some of us are just starting out on the journey, and they may not know everything. And so it's not stupidity, really. It's just there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of information out there, and to become versed in all of it takes a long time. So just be patient with others that are just waking up, including me, because there's areas myself that I'm just waking up to. Like, some of this stuff is really new to me, and some of it isn't. So there you go. Okay, dissemination. Okay, and he's saying dissemination is important to break the spell and wake them up. Of course, that's not what he's saying, but I believe that's what he's saying, because he's saying who is asleep? And dissemination. We need to disseminate this information to wake them up. Attention on deck. Well, we all know what that means. There is an active war on your mind, and we all know that. We know that there's an active war on our mind. And one thing, if you are watching a lot of TV, stop, because it is a propaganda tool, and we all know that. And I'm not saying that you have to stay away from TV completely, but I know for myself, backing away from TV and reading more and getting news sources from alternate sources has helped tremendously. It's helped me to stop thinking like everyone else as well. Anyway, there is an active war on your mind. Be prepared. Operations underway. Operators active. Graphic is essential. Find the keystone. Moves and counter moves. They never thought she would lose. Snow White, Godfather 3, Iron Eagle, Q. And of course, if we go back up here and we look at all these in the square parentheses, we have the word pray. So he's telling us to be prepared, that the operations are underway, the operators are active, the graphic to understanding what's happening is essential. These posts really is what that is. Find the keystone. Moves and counter moves. And they never thought she would lose. And of course, they're referring to Hillary Rodham Clinton. Snow White, I believe, is Snowden. Godfather 3, I'm undecided. I've heard several that it could be, but I'm just not sure yet. Iron Eagle, not sure who that is. Q. So I think I'm going to leave this one here because I think the next one, if I'm not mistaken, is quite involved. And we'll do some of these little ones here. November 9th, 2017, 11:24 p.m. And if you notice in the square parentheses, it says CIA. And in between there, it says closing act. It's the closing act of the CIA. And then Q says dismantled. They've been dismantled. And why have they been dismantled? Well, he tells us it's impossible to clean. It's just too corrupt. They're too corrupt. It can't be cleaned, so it's been dismantled. And then he says operations and a little arrow and NSA. And of course, the nickname for the NSA is No Such Agency. That they called it that in the movie Snowden as well. So he's saying that the CIA, it's their closing act. They've been dismantled because they're impossible to clean, and the operations have been carried out by the NSA. Q. Now, the next one. President of the United States, National Security, e-briefing 3:02 a.m. Please stand by, Q. So he was alerting us to security briefing. And then the next one says confirmed, meaning that the graphic was correct. Confirmed, correct, Q. So I'm going to leave it there for tonight, and I may do another one tonight because it is still fairly early, but I want to break this up some because the next one, there's a lot to it. So a lot to it, but it's going to be very interesting because it's about Jeffrey Epstein and all that. So I will leave it there. I thank you guys for listening. I really do have the sweetest listeners ever. I really do. And I appreciate you all very, very much. So like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.